Well, it's 4:01. I think we can get started. Hello, everybody. Our new and improved, updated WebEx platform. Everybody looks great. I'm Chair Zelli, and this is the Metropolitan Council, June 23rd. This is our first summer meeting. It's official. Before we start, surprise, it's an electronic meeting. And under the governor's emergency executive order still. We're conducting the meeting under Minnesota statute section 13D.021, and regrettably, if you're tuning in from the public, we're unable to take public comments, but we really do invite any email that you'd like to give us at public.info@metc.state.mn.us, and we will respond to your comments in a timely manner. Due to the nature of the meeting, we're going to have roll calls, and the first will be conducted by Bridget, who's filling in for Liz, and as a way of establishing a quorum. Bridget, you can do that now.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, Councilmember Barber.
Here.
Chambliss.
Here.
Cummings.
Here.
Ferguson. Ferguson. Bradson.
Here.
Gonzalez.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Lilligren.
Here.
Lindstrom. Lindstrom. Muse.
Here.
Sterner.
Present.
Vento.
Here.
Wolf.
Here.
Zarin.
Zarin is present.
Chair Zelli.
I'm here. We have a quorum. On to the agenda, which was amended slightly since it was first set out. Unless there's an objection, we will assume that the amended agenda is approved. No roll call required. But we are on to the minutes from June 9th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve the minutes that was sent out?
This is Sterner. I'd make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thanks, all. Any second?
Cummings seconds.
Thank you, Molly. Any discussion, corrections, questions? All right, hearing none. Bridget?
Councilmember Barber.
Aye.
Chambliss.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Ferguson. Oh. Bradson.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Lindstrom. Lindstrom. Muse.
Aye.
Sterner.
Aye.
Vento.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Zarin.
Zarin's an aye.
Chair Zelli.
Aye. The minutes are approved. On to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
Chambliss makes a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thanks, Rita. Second?
Sterner seconds.
Thanks, Phil. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Bridget, please call the roll.
All right, Councilmember Barber,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom, Musse,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Bento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zarin,
Aye.
Chair Zelli.
Aye. The consent agenda is approved. On to the reports from standing committees, and the first report is from Community Development. Councilmember Lilligren.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and council members. Community Development Committee brings 2 items forward for consideration this evening. The first is item 2021-141. It is the 2021 Livable Communities Demonstration Account Pre-Development Award recommendations. And the action is to grant funds to support 3 pre-development projects in 3 different cities. And just to remind council members, pre-development grants are intended for applicants who are defining a project, do such activities as design workshops, development of site plans, financial analysis, market studies, project-specific stormwater management plans, geotechnical analysis, fiscal, travel, demand management, or impacted analyses in support of an identified future development project. Applications were received from the cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul, Brooklyn Park, and South St. Paul. 3 of the 5 applications submitted met the minimum scoring criteria to be eligible for funding. The projects awarded will support affordable housing, business incubation space, and anti-displacement measures, and remaining funds can be allocated to future programming. So, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council award 3 Livable Communities Demonstration Account pre-development grants totaling $275,000, one to the City of St. Paul for the Rondo Restorative Development Overlay District, that's $150,000, one to the Brooklyn Park Economic Development Authority for their Innovation Hub, that's $50,000, and one to the City of Minneapolis for the Chicago Lake Rebuild, that's $75,000, and also to authorize the Community Development Division Director to execute the grant agreements on behalf of the Council.
Great, thank you. Is there a second?
Councilmember Fredson, I'll second.
Thanks for that. Any discussion, question?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
Councilmember Wolf.
sure, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm planning on voting no on this. I just wanted to let people know why. I was not at the the committee meeting because I was on vacation, but I did watch the meeting online, so I know what the discussion was there. And I also followed up with staff on some questions. But the reason I'm voting no is because of concerns about the St. Paul project being held to a different standard than we do any other project. Because like even with the TOD pre-development grants, you have to have a line that's in the pipeline and for sure going to happen before you can get pre-development grants. And with the Rondo project, it's a piece of land that doesn't currently exist and has a long process of funding and approvals if it's going to happen. So to me, planning for something that might never happen seems premature when we could use that $150,000 for actual projects, even in the regular program. And we tend to be oversubscribed for our regular program. So it's just a feeling that it's premature. We don't have any rules about that, but we've never had something come up where we get an application for land that doesn't exist. So that's why I'm voting no.
Okay, well, appreciate your explaining that, your vote. Any other comments? Go ahead, Councilmember Fredson.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to say that I would urge folks to support this. Proud to support the ongoing planning efforts for the Ronda Land Bridge. Obviously, we can't undo the damage that was done with the building of I-94 through St. Paul and Minneapolis, but this is one step we can take to kind of heal the kind of deep cut that the building of I-94 made in St. Paul and in Minnesota, and it's a step we can take to help reunite the community and reconnect the neighborhood. And it's a state and community partnership for folks that are tracking what's happening up at the legislature. This is also is in the queue for receiving some planning money from the legislature. It's part of a bipartisan agreement to fund additional planning efforts around the land bridge. So just want to lend my support and encourage you all to vote yes. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember. And it's also worth noting, part of our larger planning, we've been in the transportation area. We've been working with MnDOT on rethinking I-94, which includes a lot of conversation about this possible freeway lid. And there is some planning money. I'm not quite sure if it's through the legislature or not, but there's certainly been a lot of discussion about that planning funds and at the federal level as well. Any other comment? Go ahead, Judy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not to belabor the point, but we could, just for Councilmember Wolf's sake, she's just opposing one piece of this. So you can always just vote no on a piece of it and support the rest, because they're all worthy projects, but I don't think you're voting no on everything. So just a kind of point of clarification.
True. All right, any other thoughts, comments? All right, I think, Bridget, we're ready for a vote. Go ahead.
Councilmember Barber,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom, Muse,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Nay.
Zarin,
Aye.
Chair Zelli.
Aye. That motion carried. Councilmember Lilligren.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The other item that Community Development Committee brings forward is to award Livable Communities Demonstration Account Transit-Oriented Development Pre-Development Award recommendations totaling $202,500 to two pre-development projects in two cities. The use of these dollars are similar to the uses in our last item, except it's the transit-oriented development. Applications were received from the City of Bloomington, City of Minneapolis, and City of St. Paul. Two of the three applications submitted met the minimum scoring criteria to be eligible for funding. The projects awarded will support affordable housing, mixed-use development, and local small businesses and community organizations. Remaining funds can be allocated in future programming. So, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council award two Livable Communities Demonstration Account Transit-Oriented Development Pre-Development Grants totaling $202,500 $202,500. One to the city of Minneapolis for the 3030 Nicollet project of $150,000. One to the city of St. Paul for the 990 Payne project for $52,500, and also to authorize its Community Development Division Director to execute the grant agreements on behalf of the council.
Okay, is there a second?
Johnson seconds.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any discussion, questions? All right, hearing none. Bridget?
Councilmember Barber,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom, Muse,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zarin,
Aye.
Chairzeli.
Aye. That motion carried. The Environment Committee has reports on the consent agenda. There are no reports from the Management Committee, which takes us to the Transportation Committee. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 3 items, or the Transportation Committee has 3 items for your consideration tonight. The first item is business item 2021-117, which is regarding the approval of the Orange Line Connecting Bus Study recommended plan. The study has reviewed bus routes in Bloomington, Richfield, Edina, and South Minneapolis to improve service and maximize connectivity with the new Metro Orange Line planned to open late this year. Changes are recommended on 11 bus routes, and 5 new routes would be implemented at the same time. The plan will connect areas where frequent transit already exists with better access to suburban jobs, educational opportunities, services, and other key destinations, especially for communities of color and lower income groups, and particularly in the midday, evenings, and weekends. And I have asked Cindy Harper here to join us tonight to run through the presentation that she gave to Transportation Committee. So that I think this is really reflective of what we've been talking about over the last couple of years of really incorporating our values into how we deliver transit services. And also, I think it's something we want to make sure that we're sharing with our constituents. So I'm going to turn it over to Cindy.
Great. Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and council members. My name is Cindy Harper. I am the Senior Manager of Route Planning for Metro Transit Service Development Division. And today I'm here to present the service changes recommended in the Orange Line Connecting Bus Study. This work has been going on for over a year, and earlier this year we released a concept plan, and now staff has modified that plan based on the public feedback we received. I will walk through the changes we're recommending in conjunction with the opening of the Orange Line BRT later this year, and then finish with the business item asking the council to approve the recommended plan for implementation. Next slide, please. Here is a reminder of our study area and the project goals. As only a few stations on the Orange Line will have a park and ride, we expect that many of the riders will use transit to access the station. So high quality connecting bus service will be essential. I also would like to note that although the Orange Line itself travels to Burnsville, our study area ends at the Minnesota River. MVTA is the service provider south of the river, and they are reviewing connections at the 2 Burnsville stations. Next slide, please. Earlier this year, we asked our riders and other project stakeholders to weigh in on the changes that we proposed in our concept plan. We used several different outreach strategies to get the word out and received about 600 comments. We heard strong support for the Orange Line itself And stakeholders were pleased that our concept plan included coverage on all of the various local branches of Route 535, which will be replaced by the Orange Line. They also supported restoring service on 2 routes where it's currently suspended due to the pandemic, simplifying 4 routes so that all of the trips follow the same routing, and improving frequency on 7 routes. Areas of concern that we heard about included our proposal to eliminate 2 parts of Route 515, one section near the west side of the airport and one serving the VA Medical Center and Nokomis East neighborhood, South Minneapolis, as well as the proposal to eliminate service on 90th Street in West Bloomington. Some of our Route 539 and 597 supporters did not like that we are proposing to replace what is currently a 1-seat ride with a transfer that will add travel time. Next slide, please. In response to what we heard from the community, 7 routes were modified from the concept plan. Route 7 will be adjusted in order to maintain the direct link between the VA Medical Center and 66th Street corridor during the rush hour, which is when most of the people who use transit to get to the VA Medical Center are traveling. In the off-peak, riders will need to connect via the blue line at the Mall of America. Also, we will have a new route serving the 2 air cargo facilities located at the airport, and this will actually be an improvement because it features front door service. Currently, riders going to FedEx and UPS have to walk about 1 mile down Longfellow Road from the bus stop. And also Route 534, which is a new route, will be adjusted in order to retain service on 90th Street in West Bloomington. Next slide, please. Other changes include reinstating Route 537, which operates on France Avenue between Southdale, Normandale Community College, and Valley West Shopping Center. This is actually a change that would happen at the start of the fall semester in August instead of waiting until December with the opening of the Orange Line. Also, proposing to bring back Route 542 on American Boulevard with new all-day service extending from the Mall of America all the way as far west as Highway 169. Southwest Transit's on-demand Prime service can provide connections to the Golden Triangle jobs just on the other side of 169, as well as other Eden Prairie destinations. And finally, Route 539 riders who currently have a 1-seat ride will still need to transfer with our new Route 546, but we've been able to relocate it so that that transfer will happen at an Orange Line station, 98th Street station, which has much better waiting facilities. Next slide, please. Other highlights that were carried forward from the initial concept plan include the Orange Line will run every day. Right now, today's 535, which is going to be mostly replaced by the Orange Line, does not have any Saturday or Sunday service. Also, we're able to have a significant jump in the amount of service available, about 20% overall, and that's not even including the actual Orange Line itself. And actually about a 33% increase on Saturdays. We are going to be able to reopen the Lake Street station at 35W that closed with the construction, started the construction back in 2018 or so. Reopening this station and providing the connection with the Orange Line will provide connections for suburban residents getting to South Minneapolis jobs, and also for South Minneapolis residents in order to be able to access suburban jobs, because nearly all of the express routes that travel on 35W would stop at the station. All of the Route 7 trips will be extended to serve Cedar Point Commons, which is a retail area near 66th Street and Cedar Avenue. Right now, we only do that in the off-peak. And we will be able to maintain a 98th Street crosstown connection. Currently on Route 535, we have a fast connection between the 35W and the college. And we're able to maintain that with some changes on Route 539 to have a crosstown. And then we will continue to provide east-west coverage in parts of Bloomington as well. Next slide, please. You might notice that there aren't a lot of changes in the recommended plan in South Minneapolis and in other places in the study area, where we have a large number of low-income and BIPOC communities living. That is because these areas already have very good connections with the Orange Line and a very high level of service, where nearly everyone has access to transit and about 70% of those have access to service every 15 minutes or better. This plan focuses on increasing service in places where there currently isn't a lot of service in order to improve access throughout the entire study area. This map illustrates that we will be connecting areas where frequent service already exists with better access to key suburban destinations through suburban service increases. The map is really communicating two different things. The size of the dot is the total number of trips, and then the color of the dot represents the change. So the gray circles show areas where we don't have any significant increase in the number of trips being provided. The blue circles represent the number of weekday trips that we have on the street currently, and the red represents the increase when the changes are implemented at the end of the year. Basically, the bigger the dot, the higher the number of trips. You'll notice that much of the red, which indicates the service increase, is in Bloomington, Richfield, and Edina, but the largest dots themselves are in South Minneapolis. Next slide, please. The recommended plan improves access to jobs, educational opportunities, services, and other key destinations. There are nearly 10,000 students, of which approximately 40% are BIPOC, attending Normandale Community College. And in the corridor, the 494 corridor between Mall of America and Highway 169, there's nearly 55,000 jobs. Next slide. On average, a resident living in the study area can access about the same number of low-wage jobs within 45 minutes during the AM peak, but BIPOC residents will gain access to more jobs than white residents. All of the demographic groups will see an increase in access to jobs in the midday, with the largest improvement experienced by BIPOC communities. This increase is most noticeable for lower wage jobs in the off-peak, which tend to be part-time. Next slide, please. The recommended plan better distributes transit access to suburban jobs in Burnsville, near the Mall of America, along 494, in Western Edina, and in Southwest Bloomington. Midday access to these areas is improved the most, as evident by the green areas shown on the map on the right. Next slide, please. It is important that we understand the impacts of these proposed changes, especially for communities of color and those experiencing poverty. The left and middle maps show where these groups are living in the study area. We want to pay attention to the darker dots, which represent where lower income and BIPOC people are living. On these maps, every dot represents 50 people. The map on the far right shows the change in the number of weekly trips. And green means more trips, purple means a decrease in the amount of service. It's important to keep in mind that the green or the purple are not just tied to demographics, and we need to also consider where those who rely on transit the most live and where they want to travel for a more complete picture. Next slide, please. We have worked to get the word out about what we have changed since our concept plan and which changes are moving forward. There was no formal public engagement period. At this point, we were letting everyone know what it is that we are asking the council to approve. Once again, our website, social media, and existing venues such as the Writers Club were key to our outreach. And the project was featured in the Star Tribune recently. There will be another major effort to make sure everyone knows what is happening as we get closer to the start date. Next slide, please. And the business item for today is that the Metropolitan Council approved the service changes in the Metro Orange Line Connecting Bus Study recommended plan for implementation with the opening of the Orange Line BRT project and related Title VI analysis. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you for that wonderful presentation, Cindy. Any questions? Go ahead, Molly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. More a comment than a question. Much of this runs through my district, and the outreach that was done, it was just excellent, and I would commend Cindy and the entire team on this. I mean, this is a critical route, and to do that kind of intensive and comprehensive planning and then put it out there, and then respond to all of the various ways that people were able to make suggestions to make it even better and incorporate those into the final plan is really, really important. And I think it reflects what we are trying to do, and that we are trying to talk to people and accommodate people. We're never going to have a route that makes every single individual happy. That just doesn't exist. But there was so much that came out of this study, and there is so much good. And I know that the staff in the cities and the residents in the cities that this touches are just really, really pleased with what this will do for the availability of jobs and getting from here to there, shopping, doing other things, and using our transit system as fully as it is intended to be used. So I thank you, Cindy, and your staff. And I think there hasn't been a second. If possible, I would make the second to that motion.
Go ahead, Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make the first. So therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council approve the service changes in the Metro Orange Line Connecting Bus Study recommended plan for implementation with the opening of the Orange Line BRT project and the related Title VI analysis.
All right, and Councilmember Cummings, I think you just offered to second. Go ahead, Deb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really want to echo Councilmember Cummings' comments. I really did want this to come, and so the whole council could see it, not only so we can talk and communicate out about it, but I think it's a great example of we're building a large infrastructure project like the Orange Line, but we're actually taking into consideration the long-term impacts of really getting people to where they want to go, whether it's to school or whether it's to work. And I also have heard really good feedback. And I also, want to thank Cindy and her team. Really, really outstanding work. And I think that this is sort of a good example of really practicing what we've been preaching and trying to really show how we can build out a transit system that is truly connected.
Thank you.
Great. Any other comments, questions? Well, in the risk of just being repetitive, great job. I mean, I am so thrilled to see that presentation, and I'm really glad you shared it with the whole council. And honestly, I can't. Every so often, I hear myself saying we have an interconnected transit system. I'm just thrilled to see that that actually is true, and this really points to it.
Right.
That we're actually talking about not just one of these lines in isolation, but how it's so integrated with the entire region and this particularly this area, which really needs enhanced service, and it's really good to see that graphically.
Great, thank you.
All right, if there's not any other comments, questions, Bridget, you may call the roll.
All right. Councilmember Barber.
Aye.
Chambliss.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Ferguson.
Aye.
Fredson.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Muse.
Aye.
Sterner.
Aye.
Vento.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Zarin.
Zarin's an aye.
Chair Zelli.
Aye. So that motion carried. Councilmember Barber, back to the green line.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, council members. Business item number 2021-132 is for executing a change order for the contract with Aldrich Parsons, a joint venture, for up to 3 years of storage for manufactured light rail system components. Due to the anticipated delays in civil construction, impacts to the availability of work sites designated for systems components are expected. Generally, when civil construction work is complete, the site is handed over to the systems contractors to begin that work. Systems work is traditionally one of the last pieces of LRT work before the line undergoes testing and enters revenue service. The lease for the storage facility will be for up to 3 years due to the rental market being extremely constrained. A year lease for suitable storage facility was not possible. By storing the components locally, significant cost and schedule delays associated with delaying component production are mitigated, as the manufacturers will provide and deliver the components on the originally planned schedule. Costs for local storage include storage facility setup, security, management, utilities, maintenance, loading and unloading, and storing of the components. The change order is within the scope of the Southwest LRT project and will be part of the project's budget. It includes work performed by DBE firms such that APJV will continue to maintain a 12% DBE participation for the overall contract. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator through the Southwest LRT Council authorized representative to negotiate and execute a change order for contract 17P000 with Aldridge Parsons, a joint venture, in an amount not to exceed $8,972,046,000.95 for up to 3 years of storage for manufactured light rail system components.
Okay, is there a second?
Coming seconds?
Thank you, Molly. Any questions, discussion? Yeah, I would add that nobody likes to see this kind of funding for just storage, but it is, I think, prudent that keeping these components, all this very technical and vast amounts of equipment safe and secure and available, because if it isn't available when it comes time to build this, then that would be an even greater cost. So it helps with timing, mitigates the risk. Any more comments? If not, Bridget, you may call the roll.
All right, Councilmember Barber,
Aye.
Shamliff,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Muse,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zarin,
Aye. Zarin's aye.
Chair Zelli.
Aye. All right, that motion carried. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, council members, this item is a motion to amend a previously approved action by the Metropolitan Council. The committee report for business item 2020-295 on the council's December 23rd, 2020 meeting agenda included clerical errors that were later noted when the 2021 grant agreements were finalized for execution. The business item was stated correctly, but the summary committee report contained incorrect dollar amounts. The below proposed action was motion to amend a previous approved action, revises the committee report to be consistent with the business item 2020-295. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to execute operating grant agreements for the calendar year 2021 with the funding transitway counties of Anoka, Hennepin, and Ramsey to receive funds in 2021. For the Metro Blue Line, it's with Hennepin County for $13,896,218. For the Metro Green Line LRT, it's with Hennepin County in the amount of $8,636,036. With Ramsey County, it is $5,757,357. And for North Star, it is with Anoka County, $3,061,531, and Hennepin County, $699,279.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Wolf seconds.
All right. Any questions? It's really to amend a clerical error. I think the record should show that Councilmember Barber is doing a really great job of of articulating a lot of numbers really quickly. All right, any thoughts? No? All right, Bridget, you may call the roll.
Councilmember Barber,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Muse,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zarin,
Aye.
Chirizelli.
Aye, that motion carried. Now we're on to the information item. Initially, we were going to have a report from Judge Sutton on the legislative session, but thinking that it would be over by June 23rd, but they're still in session and some things still being worked out. So I think it's better for us, rather than have a report of what might happen, we'll have a report about what did happen. And so we're going to just defer that. But my understanding is that we expect that the session will be resolved and adjourned before the end of the fiscal year. And we kind of look forward to giving you both written reports, but also we can talk more about it at our next meeting. But this is a time for a little update, information item on the Southwest Light Rail project, and I think we're going to have Jim Alexander give the presentation. Jim, are you here?
I am here, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Unfortunately, my video is having issues, so I won't be able to do the video, but I do have a presentation to run through for you all. And Greg, it looks like you're pulling that up. So
Okay.
we try to give you all an update on the Southwest LRT project on a quarterly basis, and we last did our update on March 17th, the committee of the whole. So it's time to get you updated on where we are. So Greg, if you could advance to the next slide after that. Oh, I guess we got another one. Okay, this is good. So you may recall we talked about our challenges as I worded them, and we just talked about the business item related to those challenges, the delay to the civil construction. And there are two pieces, just to remind you all about where we were earlier this year, where we talked about the border protection wall in the eastern part of the project. And we have since signed a change order, which that went through council for approval. And so the work is underway, and I have a slide to show that later on. The other piece relates to the Kenilworth corridor and the tunnel that we're looking to build and are building, and relates directly to the secant wall. And that was due to unforeseen soil conditions, and so we have to insert that into the project. So that will be a forthcoming change order that I'm hopeful that I can bring to the Transportation Committee and the council later this summer. We're still working out details on that, but because of these two pieces, we are impacting the schedule. Original revenue service date on this project was 2023, and I've indicated out in the arena that that is not going to happen, and we're still in the process. If you could advance the next slide there, Greg. We're still in the process of working on what that rescheduling will look like, and primarily talking to our civil contractor and our systems contractor to get what we're calling a rebaseline, or updating the schedule due to those impacts. And so you can see the next steps that I think I had on the slides when we talked back in March. But the Corps Protection, again, we've checked that box for the change order, and the work is now underway. The Kenilworth Tunnel, we still have some work to do there. We had some sheet separation with the support of excavation sheet piling that went in, so we can actually build the tunnel in the ground. We had some separation, and we're needing to grout that, and so that'll be a forthcoming business item that I'll be bringing to the Transportation Committee here on the 28th. And subsequently to the council, I believe, on the 14th of July. And we have the secant wall. We also have delays in the installation of the sheets. It took quite a bit longer to install the sheets than originally anticipated, and the contractor is looking to be compensated for that. So we're in the process of negotiating that. So that'll be another change order that will be coming your way later this summer once we get that finalized. I think the big piece here is the resequencing of the tunnel construction that has to happen because of that secant wall insertion. And so we're still working with the contractor on that as well. But so it really comes down to schedule, getting the schedule redefined on the civil, and that will roll into the systems redefinition of the schedule, and also SCADA. SCADA is this, just we have integration testing responsibilities for that SCADA contractor that will be kind of partnering with the systems as we get to eventually get into revenue service. So we do anticipate that we'll have change orders associated with these elements, and there will be costs associated with these schedule changes as well to be negotiated still. So that's kind of where we're at. And maybe, Mr. Chair, I would stop there before I get into some slides of images of construction that we've had so far.
Any questions so far on what Jim has just presented?
All right. Well, Greg, maybe advance to the next slide. So next series of slides, we start from the west and progress to the east, and we'll start at Southwest Station. This, if you haven't been out there, Southwest Station is really coming along. This is the ramp. We'll ultimately have 450 stalls to join up to the 900 plus existing stalls that Southwest Transit has out there. And just off to the left of this structure will be the bus pull in that Len Semich and his crew will be operating bus, and the LRT will actually be within the ramp itself, coming from the opposite side of the screen there. You have a waiting area just beyond that crane type piece of equipment there that you see in red. Next slide, please. So this is our first of 14.5 miles of LRT track that has now been started. This is on the Prairie Center Drive Bridge. This is just east of the Southwest Station. Next slide, Greg. This is Eden Prairie Town Center Station that's coming along nicely. Got a lot of good work there. The contractor is doing a really good effort in the architectural features on this on these stations. Next slide, please. This is an abutment for a bridge that goes over 9 Mile Creek, eventually heads its way over to Highway 212, and that work is coming along well. Next slide, please. So we had to close down Highway 212, which you see with no traffic on there, and the reason being is we had to set some steel beams. These beams are up to 150 feet long, 10 feet high, about 77 tons. Quite an effort to get these, especially the curvature you can see on some of these beams, to get those in place. The contractor worked for, we had the roadways closed down for a few days, but thanks to MnDOT and the community for putting up with us to close those down. That was very important to have that, to be able to put these beams across the roadway. I got another slide here coming up. Great. This is just kind of looking skyward at those and your appreciation of the size of those beams. Next slide, please. So this is the south end, or the west part of the tunnel for LRT that will go under Highway 62. Highway 62 is just off to the left. It's currently shifted to the north to accommodate this construction. We'll eventually shift it back in its original location. And this work is actually ahead of schedule. So the contractor's looking to have the roof all in place here, last pour here coming up in the next week or so. Next slide, please. So another station, this is just north of that. You can see the cranes in the background where the tunnel is. This is just north of that Opus station in Minnetonka. Next slide, please. This is one of the roadways that we're building to have LRT go under the Smetana and Felto roadways as we make our way northward to Shady Oak Station. The LRT tracks will essentially be where that crane is located down at the lower piece there, and go under the roadways. Next slide, please. This is a portion of a rather long bridge, about 3,000 feet in length, that just north of that last image you saw, where we go up and over a wetland and a railroad and land at Shady Oak just to the north. Next slide, please. This is Shady Oak Station, another station moving along pretty well. We have 8 of the 16 stations under construction right now. Next slide, please. So there's another station downtown Hopkins. See the architectural features coming into play there. Next slide, please. This is the Excelsior Bridge. This is if you haven't been out to Excelsior over in Hopkins, you really should try to make your way out there. It's a pretty impressive bridge structure. There's a cantilevered construction that's very technical in nature, and the contractor's making good progress on this. Next slide, please. Back in May, we had the opportunity to take some folks from Three Rivers out to show them status of trails, and we also had some St. Louis Park folks there as well. This is at the Blake Road tunnel for the pedestrian tunnel that we have half built. We're currently building the other side, the east side, starting the excavation for that to finish that up this year. Next slide, please. Moving further east, we're in Minneapolis here. This is one of the first cells that we have for the Kenilworth Tunnel. They essentially have, contractor has put in the base slab, which we're calling a tremie pour, because they do it underwater, and they've taken out most of the water. The water was up about 19 feet from the base of the excavation, and we filled about 8 feet or so of concrete. And from there, the tunnel itself will be built inside this chamber, if you will. And we have 31 of these chambers that we have to build the just about a half-mile long tunnel. Next slide, please. This is further east or north over the channel between Cedar Lake and Lake of the Isles, where we're building LRT bridge. Just off to the left is the freight bridge that was built last year, and the existing pedestrian bridge that's used for construction access right now. Off to the right will eventually be a pedestrian bridge once it's all said and done. Next slide, please. And 21st Street Station coming along. Next slide, please. This is the quarter protection. The contractor is starting to drill shafts. There's quite a number of these shafts to build for the quarter protection wall to make that very stout to withstand any impact from the freight rail and light rail likewise. So that work is well underway. Next slide, please. And here we are up at Glenwood, where we see the LRT bridge coming out of the rail corridor. You can see the freight rail tracks off to the right there. This is in the foreground is the Glenwood Avenue bridge structure that we'll eventually have in place. We essentially have 3 bridges here. There's 2 roadway bridges, and in the middle is an LRT bridge where the LRT will be crossing at that roadway grade on the bridge. Next slide, please. Mr. Chair, I could pause there if there are any questions. Otherwise, I'll move into other focus areas of construction.
Any questions for Jim? You know, Dean, you might want to just describe how robust this corridor protection wall is, and why we don't have it on with TCW, because we're in a trail. I mean, we're in a tunnel, but you know, clearly this was a change order. It was underestimated, and it's going to take a while to build. But can you describe kind of what
sure.
makes it so expensive? It's not just a concrete wall, you know.
Right. Well, first we had to meet the requirements of BNSF, and in order to be able to build and operate trains in their corridor, because we are using some of their property, their right of way, to do this, because as we go up and over their freight line. And BNSF had requested that we design to a high-speed rail design criteria, because at the time they were working on the California high-speed rail project, and so we had to use that criteria. And it has to withstand a freight, locomotive, all its cars doing a derail and hitting the wall, but not fouling the LRT. And so that requires a very stout wall, and the soils aren't so good out there. So we have a number of drilled shafts that have to essentially take that load, because they're essentially have the drilled shafts. On top of that, you have a wall, and that's all structurally tied together. And so it's a very detailed and very strong. And we, you know, we do have questions about why here and why not there. Our design criteria had said that if we have a freight rail and LRT closer than 25 feet, we will have corridor protection. And we do have that other areas of the project. But BNSF looks at this as more kind of like a rail highway. And we needed to design at fairly high speeds within this corridor, where, for example, in the Kenilworth corridor, the TCNW operates at 10 miles an hour. We're up in the 45 plus mile an hour up in this corridor. So it's more like a kind of a freight highway system as opposed to a rural roadway, kind of how I look at it.
That's helpful. Thanks. Any other thoughts, questions?
All right. So next on to, well, I have a couple images of Franklin operation maintenance. So recall that we are, go to the next slide there, Greg. We are doing some modifications to this facility. You can go to the next slide there, Greg. To accommodate the 27 vehicles that Southwest LRT is going to be having as part of our project. And so we need to make some extra space here. The site is very tight, so we essentially are expanding the mechanical, which you see off to in the foreground, off on the left side, and then up above that kind of a third story piece is where we have a new rail control facility that is required for operations to operate all of Blue, Green, and North Star. And then the other piece is a wash and sanding bay expansion that is actually paid for by Metro Transit, but the contract is part of the Southwest LRT project. But essentially, this allows operations to wash and sand a 3-car consist, where previously they could only do 1 car, which was quite laborious, and this will help streamline their operations. Another feature I'll talk about here in a moment is part of this, but you can advance the slide here, Greg. So here's just an image of that north yard with the maintenance shell essentially built out. We'll have this facility up and be all up and done by the end of the year here. But you can see the rail control center up above in the blue there. Doesn't have its finish off on this image, but that is something that's getting in place, and all the track work associated with that. Next slide, Greg. So the other feature that we did to help accommodate the 27 vehicles coming into this facility, because it's really cramped as is, and as the original program was to build a separate OMF out in Hopkins, but that was removed from the program a couple of years ago. So this will store. We have up to 11 vehicles that we can store on these 2 tracks that are closest to the storage barn, which you see off to the right. And then that west runner on the further to the left allows trains to pass. And so that work is well underway and should be operational here shortly. Next slide, please. So those are my slides for construction. I also have a real estate update. Should I just go into that, Mr. Chair?
Sure, unless there's any questions. I think Molly has a question. Go ahead, Molly.
Actually, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make a comment. Thanks, Jim, for the presentation. It's really good. I would invite council members who maybe don't live over on the west side of town or get over to the west side here to come over and visit the site. To see it in person is really extraordinary. The project office is offering tours along the line for residents, and they've been very well received. And I took the tour last week in the Hopkins area, and I know that our residents were really excited to participate and get their questions answered and get a really deep sort of inside look and understanding. But again, when you see it, the idea that this project is being laid down in a thriving metropolitan area, and it is so narrow in some areas, and yet, nothing like this has been undertaken in the state, but every business continues to operate. Freight rail runs. People are able to access their homes. The restaurants are open. The businesses are opening up again. All of these things have to be accommodated. It's not out in the country where it's wide open spaces, and it is threading a needle that is just unbelievable. And when you see it in person, anywhere along the line, so if you have a chance, come over and take a peek. You can drive any part of it and pull over and look, and I think you'll be wowed when you see what this actually is. The slides are great, Jim. Seeing it in person is really extraordinary. So I just would encourage people to come on over on a lovely day and take a peek, because it's really quite a project. And I think that the work that's being done is really amazing, and I appreciate everything that the project office is doing. I know that we've had lots of change orders that have come before the council. It's impossible. It is just absolutely impossible to anticipate the kinds of things, again, in an operating corridor that you're going to encounter. And so to manage that and to see and hear the project office and how hard they work to continue to advance the project, because time is really important. We want to get this built, we want to get this going, and to keep the costs down as low as they possibly can on these changes is amazing too. And I thank you, Jim, and your staff for that. So anyway, I just wanted to make a couple of comments, because this is really transformative, not just for the 5 cities or the region, but the entire state. And to Charlie's point earlier about the Orange Line Connecting Bus Study, it is part of a robust system, a transportation system, and we need all of these pieces to come together. And this is another extraordinary and very exciting piece to fit into our transit puzzle. So thanks for what you're doing, and thanks for the presentation.
Great,
All right.
thanks, Molly.
Thank you, Councilmember. So I have a couple more slides, and I'll hand it over to John Tao. If you could advance the slide, Greg. We have an update on the real estate, which we give as part of this update. And we are now at 83 parcel acquisitions complete. We were at 79 last time we reported to you. So we're steadily getting the 150 done, but it's still going to take some time. These real estate acquisitions can't happen overnight, but our team continues to work diligently on them. Next slide. And in terms of displacees, again, all the displacees have been displaced now, but we still have 3 claims that are actively being finalized. And I think last time I reported about the same. Maybe it was 4 last time. So with that, unless there's any questions for me, I'll hand it over to John Tao.
Great, thanks, Jim. Welcome, John.
Good evening, everybody. Can we advance to the next slide, please? Next one, too. Thank you, Greg. All right, so slide 34 here. And here are the SWLRT construction contracts. They continue to exceed the DBE goals. And that is always a welcomed sight for us to see. So I'm going to dive deeper into them. Next slide, please. So for the civil contract, we plateaued at 20.5%. There's some incoming change orders, and we are monitoring that to see how the prime contractor is working to maintain their DBE participation. Slide 36, please. The systems contract is at 16%, and as you guys also just recently approved the change order earlier tonight, that will also contain some DBE participation, and we are monitoring the prime contractor's plan to see how they are planning to maintain their DBE participation. So that will continue on as time progresses. So next slide. Here, the Franklin contract is at 20%. This is where we want them to be and anticipate the DBE participation to be for the remainder of the contract. So their contract ends at the latter part of this year. So they are doing pretty well. So next slide. And here is the disaggregated DBE data for the SWLRT construction contracts. If you look into your handouts, there is a handout with more detailed breakdown of the different contracts. And when you look at these numbers, it's not changed too much since the last time we presented them. But we do acknowledge that there is an underutilization of Black, Asian, Hispanic, and Native American, and especially BIPOC women-owned businesses. And we want to see more participation by them. Unfortunately, a lot of the contracting opportunities have already been awarded by the prime contractor to the subcontractors. However, there is opportunity in these change orders that are coming up, and we continue to encourage the prime contractor to utilize more of the underutilized businesses. So as these contracts continue and the prime shares more information about their allocation of participation in these change orders, we will update these contract numbers. Slide 39, please. And here is the participation of the contracts by state. So Minnesota has a large portion of that. I think that this is great news. This is more dollars going back to the Minnesota community. I think that with the change orders too, we also anticipate the percentage for Minnesota participation to increase. So next slide. All right, so here is the workforce. And the civil construction workforce participation, a lot of the numbers here, when you're looking at overall cumulative 8.2% to 21.7%, this is on par with other construction projects within the region. Some good news that the prime contractor shared with us is that the MnDOT 3594 project is wrapping up, and the prime contractor will try to transfer as many women and PLCI workers as possible to this contract. And I think that this will also open up opportunities for other subcontractors to potentially recruit from, because as the larger projects within the region wrap up, there's opportunities for them to also join these projects over here. So slide 41, please. So here you can see the trend of women participation going up and then down, and the dips you can see here are from the slowdown during the winter time. Next slide is. Same thing for the people of color participation, and we are working with the Minnesota Department of Human Rights to meet with the prime contractors monthly to review the prime contractors' good faith efforts and hearing more about what they're doing to hold their subcontractors accountable. I think the good news there is that the participation cumulatively is still maintaining, and so we are going to continue to monitor and encourage them to look at new ways where they can find more participation. Here is the participation of the workforce on the civil contract disaggregated. So in this slide, there's also a handout And in the handout is more information about the disaggregated data for this. So, in one of the recent discussions with the prime contractor, they shared that they've been meeting with the community-based organizations and the unions, and also asking their subcontractors to attend workforce events, such as at the Minneapolis Urban League, and trying to recruit more women and POCI folks. So, next slide, please. So we don't have a slide for the systems contract because to date there's only been about 270 hours. That's very limited data, so we hope to have a slide in the future as their participation increases. MDHR shared that they are going to start monitoring the workforce for the systems contract as more work is continuing for their contract or starting up for their contract. For the Franklin contract, there's been a huge increase, for the unspecified category here on the end. So you see it's 14.37, and that's something that we don't normally see. So the Minnesota Department of Human Rights, we met with the prime contractor, and they are talking to their subcontractor to find out, is this self-identification as unspecified something that was accidental or intentionally done? Are people really deciding to leave their status as unspecified? So we just want to get some clarification there, because if there are women or POCI folks within that participation there, we want to allocate it into the right category so that we can account for the workforce hours there. So yeah, once we hear back from them and their subcontractors, we will share that information back out, and hopefully that will help increase the participation. All right, next slide, please. So here is the workforce trend for the Franklin project. As you can see, during the winter months, there was more participation, and more recently, the participation has gone down. This is due in part to one scope of work being completed and a different subcontractor coming on and doing more work. This particular rail subcontractor has a much less diverse workforce than we would like to see. So we had a recent DBE and Workforce Advisory Committee meeting, and we invited them to share more about their challenges there. But yeah, this is their participation here. Next slide, please. And then with the, you can see some of the same lower participation in the recent months as the women too here for POCI. I think that for us, it's good to see that at least at the very minimum, we are still maintaining the same participation or overall participation with other projects within our region. And at least if we're maintaining that, we are helping to contribute to the progress. Of course, we are working with the prime contractor, meeting up with them every month to get them to try new methods, continue to build new relationships with community-based organizations, because we know that that is where a lot of the community folks who are here locally, they go to for support services, and this is where the opportunity lies. Slide 47. Here's the disaggregated workforce data for the Franklin contract. And you can see here that there is a larger participation here for Black women. And that was part of the prime contractor had a couple of Black women working on their crew over the winter months. And that's why you see the uptick. So I think that, this goes to show that this is what happens when you get more women and POC folks on. It's going to increase the participation, and this is what we want to see more of. So they shared that those workers that were on with them, they decided to do a career change afterwards towards the spring. So, we were saddened to see that, but we encouraged them to continue to look for people to fill those roles and recruit and retain more women and POCI folks on their core crews. So, next slide, please. So, at the subcontractor workforce participation discussion meeting at the advisory committee meeting we had, these are the subcontractors that had a larger amount of projected workforce hours on these construction projects. So we invited them to come and share more information about their challenges that they are experiencing towards meeting the workforce goals. And for them, some of the trades that they work with, such as the iron workers, the electricians, and the welders, they share that they struggle with retaining women for those particular jobs. And some of the challenges they encounter are childcare, because construction jobs aren't the usual 8-hour day. Sometimes when construction is really busy, it's 10 to 12-hour days, and they struggle with finding daycare providers that are going to be able to be open that long or provide daycare for that large amount of time. Along with that, we encourage them to work directly with the community-based organizations. So some of the community-based organizations that were on the call or at the meeting with us offered to share the information, offered to have further conversations with these subcontractors to see where they can collaborate and find opportunities. We also talked about tapping into potentially the American Rescue Plan by the Biden administration, and seeing if the community-based organizations could tap into the funding to provide training and support services for the unions, and then working in collaboration with them to be able to provide resources to the union workers so that contractors can be able to overcome these barriers such as childcare or other barriers that prevent women in POCI to be successful in the field of construction. And I think the challenge for the unions is that they are privately funded, so they aren't able to access those funds. But I thought that this was a pretty innovative thing, is to work with the CDOs to be able to do that. So they are looking into further discussions about this and what potential that this could bring for increasing participation for workforce for women and POCI. And I believe that this is my last slide, so I yield back to the chair.
Thanks, John. I think any questions for John at this point? All right, hearing none. Sam, looks like you're up.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Council Member Sam O'Connell with Community Affairs. And I'll give a quick update on some of our communications and outreach activities. Greg, if we can go to the next slide. Just want to share with folks kind of the best way to stay connected with us with construction. A lot of the good work that Jim covered today is still through our weekly construction update. We are over 17,000 subscribers, which is very exciting, and still maintain a very high open rate. So again, that is a weekly construction update that comes out on Fridays. We're also growing our Twitter followers as well as a way to share information. And thank you for everybody as they repost and kind of retweet some of our information, particularly to our city friends when we've had specific construction activities in one of the 5 cities. That the cities have been doing that as well. We continue to meet with our construction information work groups. Each community, each of the 5 cities has a construction information work group comprised of residents and business members Some of these groups meet quarterly, some meet monthly, and basically is an opportunity for us to hear on how our construction activities are going, and also talk a little bit about what to be expecting with some of our ongoing and upcoming activities as well. So those meetings continue throughout the summer. Our team, our outreach team, continues to meet with property owners to provide just general updates, and then also talk a little bit about when we have some special circumstances to make sure as the property owners aware of our construction activities, and if we need to do anything special or unique, making sure that those lines of communications are open as well. So those meetings, which really do comprise the bulk of our team's time, is being out in the field and meeting with property owners, both on the residents and business side. And as Council Member Cummings was so nice to, in her remarks, to highlight our corridor tours, we are just in the process of wrapping up our first corridor tours for Southwest LRT. This Saturday will be the last of 7 tours that we've done, a couple in Eden Prairie, a couple in Minneapolis, and then in each of the remaining communities as well. So Saturday we'll wrap up with an Opus station tour, kind of station area, so folks can see all the good development that's happening around the Opus station in Minnetonka, as well as some of the Highway 62 tunnel construction. So they have been received really well. This is our first time doing these public tours, and we anticipate doing another round in August and also another round in fall as well. So in the pictures share with you some of the imagery. The one on the left is the Eden Prairie tour that took place, where folks were able to actually get up and see where some of the LRT rails are on the Eden Prairie Center Drive bridge. And then the picture on the right shows our folks talking to some of our Minneapolis residents as well, and showing some of the construction activities there. Greg, if we can move to the next slide. Just as a reminder for everybody around the virtual table and listening in, the best way to hear about those tours when we offer them again is again through our construction update, online, and Twitter as well. It's also a great opportunity for to connect with staff and for us to come out and share with you some of the great progress that we have been doing. And like Council Member Cummings said, you don't have to wait for a tour. You could just drive the tour and see a lot of these good things as well. So with that, Chair, I believe that completes our presentation on the Southwest LRT, and we'll turn it back to you.
Well, thanks, Sam and Jim and John. There's, those pictures were pretty current. It seems like there's a lot that goes on every week. And any questions, thoughts on the Southwest Light Rail? Well, it's a great team, and it is a challenging project. Boy, you really get a sense. And we've got everything: tunnels, flyways, wetlands, stations, urban areas. It's got it all. So it's complicated. All right. Then does any council member have any report that they want to share? Rita.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I am hosting, along with Metropolitan Council staff, a listening session on the Blue Line extension and its planning process that is going to be held in Brooklyn Park at 6 o'clock on June 29th.
All right. Coming right up. Thank you, Riva. And I think we're going to find through the summer various opportunities if those that want to engage on the project go to kind of listening tours, driveway tours. I think Commissioner Lundy's going to host some, and others. So stay tuned. Molly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment that this afternoon was the celebration for new Metro Transit police officers who were sworn in, and also the celebration of several who were promoted. And the 5 new canine dogs joining the canine squad were there in attendance and really well behaved. It's always such an honor and privilege to go to those celebrations. It's really moving. It's really exciting. We have such an incredible police force. It was packed. There were so many supporting family members, friends, relatives, loved ones, and it was just a wonderful celebration. And I congratulate Chief Frizzell and Wes Koistra and all of those who are involved in it. It's an intense program, and these are challenging times. And the wonderful, wonderful graduates were very excited to be there, and it was an honor to be a part of that.
That's great to know, and I'm glad you were able to represent us, Molly. Thank you. Any other comments, reports, questions? Go ahead, Molly.
I need to add that Councilmember Wolf and Councilmember Chris Ferguson were also at this event. Yes.
Oh, great. Great. I'm sorry I missed it. Anybody else? How about Mary? You're here, I think. Anything you'd like to share?
Mr. Chair, for the good of the order, I will pass tonight.
All right, Anne there. She is. Hi, Anne.
Hi, Mr. Chair. I have no report either, although it is very exciting to hear about all of the Southwest stuff. I think I took my first tour 10 years ago, so I need to get out there again.
Thank you. Yes. I wish I was at the recognition. I participated in a series called Time of Reckoning. It's been actually a numbers of throughout the last 6 months, and there was a final 3-hour session today, really about convening of policymakers. So I got to represent council, other state agencies, county commissioners, to really talk about post George Floyd, post anything with the Black community. What are we doing, and how do we think about it? And I'm happy to share my comments because it was really, but also very. The whole process was a great experience, and I think very much aligned with everything we've been talking about here, and the challenge we have as a regional government to push forward to help address the inequities that we see every day. So it was well worth that time for me and very insightful. So I'm happy to talk more about that at some point. With that, it's still a beautiful day, one of the longest days of the year. So let's get out there and do it. Great to see everybody. Looking forward to seeing you all soon. And stay tuned for more reports coming from the state capitol. This meeting's adjourned. Good to see you all. See you soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye.